Hello, people.
Hello, people.
Welcome to the panel, a panel on field building. I don't know, can the microphone pick you up? I think,
Testing.
try speaking just from there.
Can you hear me? Yes.
The recording microphone picks you up. That's
nice.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. So, did you have anything in particular in mind?
Yeah, in case you didn't realize, I scheduled this like pretty ad hoc. I was like, Dušan, you want to give a panel on field building? And then I wrote a little byline, said anyone else that wants to join us to give a panel, like, contact me. And no one did, so it's us.
Who else do we need?
Yeah. So I was imagining that we could say things about what our respective organizations are trying to accomplish and then just open the floor up. Does that sound good?
Sounds good.
Cool.
You want to go first?
Sure, yeah.
As the host.
Yeah. I'm the host, apparently.
I mean, you work from here, Matt. This is your office.
Yeah, we're back in FAR Labs currently, but yeah, Matt's does regularly rent out Lighthaven. So, hi, I'm Ryan. My journey is that I did a PhD in physics in Australia at the University of Queensland. I came here about 3.5, 4 years ago and found out there wasn't a lot of AI safety research kind of pipelines happening. I tried to get into the Future of Humanity Institute at Oxford. I came here because of Chai and, of course, Lycone and other things that were popping up around the time. I got involved in a program called SERI-MATS. I was one of the first 5 scholars in the program as a pilot. And then I was like, hey, organizing team, here's a lot of feedback. And they just asked me to be on the team, and then they left, and it was just me and Christian hopped on board. And then we ran a 30-person program, and then a 60-person program, and then another 3, and then a 90, 80, 100. So we've had a lot of scholars. I see Matt in the audience, an alumnus, and also Paul, and oh man, yeah, yeah. So basically, MATS is now running twice a year. We have 100 scholars per program. The whole aim of MATS is to like accelerate researchers, founders, even staff, as research managers, to basically grow the AI safety, alignment, governance, interpretability research field as fast as we can while maintaining quality. And I have a specific vision for that I can talk about later if you want to know.
Sure, yeah. Hi everyone, I'm Dušan. I do ops at PIBBSS. Quite a few PIBBSS t-shirts today even. That's nice. Yeah, you can tell the generations of when PIBBSS are from based on the color of the t-shirt. If you see a black PIBBSS t-shirt, that's the OG. That's like that's before my time. I don't have a black t-shirt. But yeah, so what PIBBSS does is have a confusing acronym. And so it's Principles of Intelligent Behavior in Biological and Social Systems. And the basic idea of why PIBBSS was founded like this is the idea of epistemic access. So like, we don't know what future AI intelligences will be like, but we could try to look at current models and then extrapolate. Many are doing that. We could try to theorize about what they may be like Old Miri did. Or we could look at intelligence in the wild. We could look at like different kinds of intelligences that already exist, like stock exchanges or beehives, and try to see what we can learn about alignment from looking at them. So that was like the first idea behind PIBBSS. In the meantime, it has evolved more. We have found that like direct translation of insights is harder than speculated, but there are different things that this diversity does bring that still makes it like an interesting thing for PIBBSS to do. So currently PIBBSS is running only the summer fellowship, although we're looking to scale to start either a second cohort so that we are like simultaneously doing London and Berkeley from next year, or maybe a winter fellowship, we will see. And we are helping a few other fellowships get started. One, hopefully you will find out next week, early next week, the textbook of the future, which you have seen advertised a little bit by Mahundra or something. I forget the name, it's New York, didn't exist long enough. South Africa will launch a cooperative AI fellowship next week as well that PIBBSS is helping organize. So we're trying to kind of like, on a meta level, help transfer this fellowship system that we developed, while also scaling ourselves, although much less aggressively, but mostly because of capacity constraints. Maybe we catch up, yeah. So yeah, that's maybe the beginning pitches. Do you have maybe immediate questions that we can start answering, or do you just want us to kind of like riff off of this? Yes, please.
Yeah, thank you. The question is, it seems like the field has done a great job field building, meaning like the early stage kind of people get first in touch with the matter start to represent very large numbers, such that any opportunities, fellowships, area improvements, all of maths and PIBBSS and other things, tend to have a lot of applicants. So what's the ratio between accepted and applying applicants that you see? Is that constant over time? Does that skyrocket? What is your experience?
Do you want to speak with bigger numbers?
I don't actually know your numbers, but yeah.
Ours are, we have only 20 fellows, and we have about 300 applicants. And the first year we had like 100 applicants and 20 fellows. But the difference, one is like PIBBSS is now more famous, PIBBSS alumni are inviting people, but another is just like AI is just much more salient, and a lot more academics are thinking, I should figure out this AI stuff. So like, I don't know, I think its much bigger effect is just the field being more ripe, so more applicants come in, while we haven't really scaled up, because before it wasn't clear if we should, but from this year's cohort it becomes a lot clearer that like, we should become bigger. There's now like a lot more demand, and we should follow that.
Yeah, so in Matt's case, we had 2.3 thousand applicants in the last program, and I know that, a lot, right? And we were able to accept about 100 of those, so approximately like 4.5%. Note that some fraction of those applicants didn't complete the full application. They did like the first stage and they got stuck on the harder selection question. So I think actually our acceptance rate of people who do the whole thing is about 7%. That's grown a lot. So when the first maths program I ran back in 2022, mid-year, had 90 applicants approximately and 30 scholars. The acceptance rate was 30%. So from 30% to 4 to 7%, give or take, it's grown a lot in 3 years, right? And it's worth noting that for winter, we did a lot of outreach for mentors. We got 163 mentor applicants. We could only accept about 45 of those with a 100 scholar budget. So clearly the bottleneck, and let me say, like in terms of marginal scholars and marginal mentors who we'd love to support above our excellence bar, there's like more than we can even fit in the program. And so we refer them to other programs. There's a lot of kind of like other programs that are Matt's-like that have spun out. PIBBSS I see as like more of a specialist kind of thing. Matt's is sort of trying to be very diverse. And so there's a few other programs like us. And so we kind of feed them scholars. So that's why we're trying to grow so fast, is because funding is not the bottleneck. There's loads of funding for programs like ours that have proven themselves. I don't know if you've read Julian Hazel's a post on his blog, Secret Third Thing. He's at OpenPhil governance grantmaker. What he says there is the thing I've been telling people for ages. People don't believe me. There's not a funding bottleneck. There is simply not a funding bottleneck. There's a bottleneck in convincing funders you are worth funding. Okay? There's not a bottleneck in the number of people applying to programs, even as research mentors, research leads, right? They love to mentor. They're all volunteers for Matt's. The bottleneck is at the level of like infrastructure, setting up programs like Matt's and PIBBSS, scaling them. We have a hard time hiring research managers that are like worth their salt. It's just tough, because it's both. They have to be like good enough at research and good enough at people skills. It's kind of a tricky combination.
And not already doing
important research. So really, like every stage in the pipeline, right? There is just this massive bottleneck, and there's the biggest bottleneck, it seems, for people getting kind of accredited and noticed. And I guess like minimally qualified and spun up in the specific research direction, or if they're like accomplished researchers or engineers, kind of proving that they understand this new field and transitioning successfully, right? And that's the thing I think we have to expand the most. Now, you might also say there's another bottleneck, which is the level, if you believe the current paradigms aren't going to work, of like generating more paradigms or something. I also favor like a hits-based approach to this. I think that like bringing more excellent people in from fields like physics and computational biology and stuff, getting them up to speed on the context and AI safety up to the frontier, and then spinning them out into all sorts of wonderful projects would be amazing. But they need to prove themselves to funders, to employers. We need to find ways to you kind of stack them into organizations. You know what I mean? Add marginal hires at some of the organizations like Timaeus, Simplex, et cetera, that are doing great research. I guess the PIBBSS like affiliate program as well. And like identify those people, because these organizations, like, you need to kind of, it's hard to get into these things now, even now, because funders want to see that the talent is there. Law Zero, another example, many others, and of course, like, getting people who are good enough at like putting a pitch together, either for nonprofit funding or VC funding, of which there's enormous amounts. Anyway, that's my spiel.
I think the kind of order was this. Yeah.
So, like, I've heard, like, if we're not funding constrained, or we're constrained by like applying to funding, this might be like a terrible idea, but like, I'm thinking like, why don't the funders just become like more like loose with their money, like give money without like as much justification or something?
I guess they don't expect good returns from this. They expect it's worse than, like, a thing that was communicated to me a bunch was like, maybe some math scholars, maybe we're going too fast, maybe some math scholars should instead just be working in engineering jobs in tech and, learning the ropes. And then when they're good, then you can take them on or something. I'm not sure, maybe the equivalent is maybe they should be doing their physics PhDs or whatever. I don't know. I think there's, I'm not exactly sure. You'd have to talk to a funder about this. Yeah.
Yeah, Dan.
Yeah, I'm curious about how you think about the relationship between the field you're building or have built and academia. Do you view academia as just like producing talent to then put in this field? Do you view it as in the field trying to then place people in academia, something else? Like, what is the relationship, or what is successful relationship between the field and academia look like to you?
Yeah, I suppose for PIBBSS, there's like not one academia. We like people come from really any background, and so like everyone has kind of different circumstances. But when we were recently looking at like what are our alumni doing, I think something like a third are back in academia. So like they usually come from academia, they finish PIBBSS, they go back, but then they go back changed people. Like they're now building a field there. I think you're, doing exactly that kind of thing. And I think these kind of, as a PIBBSS alumni, just for context for others. But I think these kind of things are very exciting to us. So we have an alumni from last year who like went back to the university and is now going to start a lab at his uni. Great. Perfect. That's like, we paid for one, but we're getting, 8 postdocs working on this problem. And so like, I think academia, people complain is slow and all that, fine. But I think David Duveno spoke about academia is great for him. He gets to like travel a bunch, go to conferences, no one asks him a question. As a tenured professor, he can like fully pivot and do whatever he wants. And so like, there are, at different levels. I think like academia is very brutal to like fresh grads trying to now get in and like, sucks. But like, I think there is still different parts of academia that we can leverage. And there's also a thing of like credibility. PIBBSS can be the most well-known thing in the universe of less wrong. But like, once you want to talk to a politician saying University of Cambridge, is like, wow, and so like there's this reputation thing that I think they have just built up that we will take like decades to replicate, which is too slow, and we should like lean into that. So I'm quite happy when like PIBBSS alumni go back into academia to like continue field building through their work or more directly. Yeah, I don't know if you have something to say about this.
Yeah, I can say something, that's all right. So similar statistics in a way. About half of our applicants are students. The other half are, working typically. We just did a survey now about everyone who's graduated from Mass before 2025. So that's like 293 people odd. About 15% are academic researchers doing AI safety research. So that's there's a lot of room for academia. Okay, so I see academia as a source and also as a home for future safety research. I think some agendas are more amenable to academia than others. Though interestingly, I think this is less true than one might think looking at the composition of the frontier AI labs. Because you can do a lot of research on open source or open weight models, right? Such as interpretability, or even scalable oversight or AI control techniques. Arguably, we no longer need the absolute best frontier models to make useful progress, though to test it, someone has to be inside the lab to do that, probably. I think that in a world we might be heading to where it's possible that frontier labs lock their stuff down and we stop getting great open source models, especially as we head towards a world where maybe ASL 3, 4, and 5 are regularly reached in terms of the capabilities of these models. It'd be very bad if your open weight models can be easily fine-tuned to help people make bioweapons and do cyber threats and so on. So this nice world where we have a lot of open source models might not last forever. Also, if it becomes a national security concern, you can imagine being on the inside of the labs matters a lot, right? And that's, I think, part of this thought that we're going to head into this really intense, kind of very closed off, very competitive dynamic in the next 2 to 3 years is why a lot of people have joined the labs, as well as the fancy toys and the big salaries. Can't forget the big salaries. And the last factor is like, because a lot of great research talent is joining the labs, there's like a clustering effect. People are leaving academia to be part of these great teams. One of the things that's annoying about academia is it's very slow. You know, a lot of rigor, but very slow, especially with this whole kind of PI funding model. Like the PI has to be the person who is the CEO, they have to be the fundraiser, they have to be like the HR and ops person in some ways. Like they have to do all this stuff. They have to do like management. There's so many tasks. It's very inefficient. And then they have to like negotiate with the university administration to get more grants and spin their thing up. It's tough. You know, so I think it makes sense why people who want to stack a lot of layers of people under them, right, go off and found their own organization if funding isn't a bottleneck. I think there's still a substantial role for academia to play, but the role I would rather see academia play is in seeding a bunch of interesting kind of speculative basic research bets that probably don't need the biggest toys to play on. Maybe they're targeting something that's like more kind of agency related, more theoretical, maybe interpretability doesn't require the biggest toys, even scalable oversight mechanisms, such that we have like this massive, we can kind of continue the exponential growth of the field. You need to like have labs where if math scholars leave maths or PIBBSS fellows leave PIBBSS and they don't go off and like start mentoring in other programs, right? There's no doubling time to the field. The field kind of is growing linearly. If we want it to grow exponentially, people need to go off and start mentoring. They can go mentor in other programs like ours. They can return to mentor. They can also build organizations and mentor junior researchers there, or build academic labs, which is also a great recruiting ground, you know, and so on. And of course, at some point, like people are going to like talking heads are going to be like, what do you think, you know, Professor X? And it's going to matter. But if you're a person like me who is like 2032 AGI timelines, you know, things get complicated. Obviously, you want to have some people in academia in case things take a lot longer, you know, because then they can be building up the academic base. But I'm very sympathetic to people who leave academia because they think things are coming soon and we're going to get national security concerns and lockdown of labs and all that. Anyway, so that's all I have to say.
Yeah. I've been attesting it especially as well. I think that I'm curious about how empirically informed the model is of academia being slow. I thought that it was, but I've recently changed my mind. And the reason is that I've had a classic experience of trying to get a funding proposal together, and there's long timelines that we're aware of in funding cycles and hiring cycles and so on. But then I became aware that also academia is a competitive market. So then if I change my strategy to phoning up various people that I've met at conferences and saying, can your lab accept money and hire people in a month? And if you ask enough times, eventually you find a lab that has that capability. And so some of the things that I thought were like irreducible blockers on spin-up time are actually quite short. Right? A month is very fast for any organization to hire a person.
Interesting.
So I think that potentially we are, as a field, underrating the potential of academia, because the positive externalities, I think, are not just the legitimacy, which we've touched upon, but that academics are herd animals. So the more that we have labs that verify a thing as being a legitimate source of research, the greater the chance is that they can attract funding from other sources, even classic sources. Maybe we get more defense research contracts, maybe get more generic government contracts. So I think we underestimate some of the costs of academia and some of the positive externalities of academia as well. That's not a question. That's me suddenly ranting about my current hobby horse.
Can I answer that?
Yeah.
So it's a good point. And I think like if you look at funding, I think maybe people are a little too down academia. One thing I'll note though, do you know how fast Anthropic alignment science team is growing?
I have no idea.
3x per year.
Yeah, okay,
That's what you can do if you have industry funding. You can triple your team year on year. Anthropic and OpenAI on a whole have been 2xing every year. XAI grew to staggering numbers overnight. You know, like Goodfire acquired like $90 million in like a Series B or something. You know, like you can just get money overnight, stack your team with like top talent, and don't forget, like, you're also competing with these companies for hiring in terms of talent. So sure, yeah, you can grow academia faster than we thought or something, but it's still like, it's just pocket change, you know, in terms of people, in terms of funding. So it really depends if the research needs, you know, tens to hundreds of millions of dollars to function, which maybe it doesn't, right? So in which case, academia seems great. And whether you can just like stack people in a pyramid and just keep producing research at scale like that.
Yeah, there's a risk model component there, right? So if you believe that just researching safe capabilities is the main thing, and private labs can produce that, then maybe under that, you know, under certain assumptions, we get more by just relying on the private labs to do that. If we think that there are risk models that involve state actors being important in bringing about whatever safety guarantees we have, then stuff that's somehow inside the tent with the state actors, which universities are more, is potentially
interesting. I actually would think that the frontier AI labs are going to be more the Lockheed Martins and Boeings of the military-industrial complex. Already we're seeing partnerships between Anthropic and OpenAI and the White House, and I expect them to be much more inside the tent than some academic labs. But I don't know. I know very little about the history of academic government partnerships in that regard.
Yeah, no, it could break that way.
I mean, one thing that like comes to my mind is something like smoking causes cancer, or like climate change is real, where like all you needed was like two relatively well-credentialed guys, even though they're from a different discipline, saying, well, actually, and then the public goes, nobody knows. I don't know. Could be, you know, what the 100 people are saying or what these two guys are. And like, it goes both ways. Maybe like, you know, everyone says, yeah, no, it's safe, but there's two guys who say it's not, and then everyone thinks, well, it's kind of muddled. Or we could have the 100 guys, they could have the two, but either way, it's kind of the same result. So like, overly pushing for like 100% of academia agreeing is just not gonna pay such huge dividends. I think it is important. I think it's like an important model. I think like having no scientists support you is horrible. And so some legitimacy, but I think like diminishing returns hit fairly quickly, as we've seen with like other very clear-cut things in the past. And I think AI will be maybe more muddled than that. Yeah.
I also will say that my vision is for AI safety to 10 to 100x in the next 7 years. And I think that we need academia for that. Like, we can't neglect academia at all. There are herd animals, as you say, right? I mean, sure, you can publish papers from, you know, frontier labs, and then they get massive citations. Everyone in academia reads it and updates their research. That does happen, you know. But we still need academia to you know, seed new research ideas, to build labs, and to, you know, attract young talent and develop that. Why not both?
Not right, but like we must do both. Like,
we must do both.
It's not an option. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think there's also a sense of like, I think a lot of governments are going to start having their own funds for AI launched soon, if they don't already have them. And like the first batch of applicants from universities coming in with like AI pilled applications will then anchor the reviewers who maybe, you know, we haven't ever spoken to, oh, this is like what people mostly want. Whereas like if we submit 0, then like it'll forever be locked, or forever, but like for long enough be locked in like the, I don't know, will AI influence the number of parking lots kind of safety research, which is like, yeah, no, that doesn't matter. And so like, I think there's a sense of we should now prepare for those like first applications to like swamp them with good quality applications of like actually investigating what matters, to make sure that then that's the criteria that it gets graded on. Yeah, I think EU AI office being full of people who understand the problem is like a huge victory that doesn't get praised enough, but is like very important. Yeah.
I'll also say that if like AI safety is going to 10 to 100x, funding is going to start to bite. right? Before we 10x, right? And we need to, get further government funding sources, and academia is one way to do that. But also, I think, government industrial partnerships are as well.
Yeah, and then yeah.
Sure, I'll go. Ryan, you mentioned like one of your objectives being to help people get VC funding. I'm interested to hear your takes on like AI safety startups. Of like, does it? What are there examples of it working well? Do you expect it to work well? And what's like the nature of AI safety startups that can work well?
So opinions differ greatly on whether certain frontier labs are actually helping or hindering, right? I'm somewhat a fan of having, I guess, more pluralistic like frontier labs, but I know this is tricky, right? Because obviously there's like a race dynamic that ensues. I don't know. I think ChatGPT is a very exciting product, and I think people are racing ahead. There's plenty of incentives for OpenAI to race ahead, regardless of whether Anthropic is around. That's not a complete excusal of Anthropic trying to be at the frontier of coding or something, but I do think like Anthropic is an example of a thing that I'm actually glad exists. So maybe controversial in this conference, but they have a great team. They can do great research. Also, I think like Google DeepMind has a lot of great researchers even working on Marcus Hutter and Tom Davidson working on these causal incentives and AIXI stuff on the side. But let's talk about the thing you're pointing out, which is like people founding new things, because I'm not sure we necessarily want to found more of those type of things. I think Goodfire is actually great. I don't think they're meaningfully accelerating AI capabilities, but at the same time, they're actually leveraging vast amounts of VC and revenue fund like for interpretability research that like could contribute to the very frontier of AI interpretability, which is awesome. They can do that. Other things that I think we need, like the AI underwriting company, that seems amazing. Why did we not have this before?
What's this?
It's an AI agent insurance company. Like auditing standards and insurance, why not let regulatory markets help incentivize the development of safety standards by and auditing and all this kind of stuff? Seems awesome, AI. I think that this is like part of the flywheel. There's this interesting article by Rune Kvist, one of the co-founders of that, who also co-founded Center for AI Safety. What else? I quite like Christian Rohn's Lucid Computing startup, and TamperSec, Jonathan Apple, and Jacob Laguerres' Ulyssean. All these are trying to provide like security solutions that can aid compute governance and like export controls by providing providing secure containers where you can provably geolocate where chips are by latency pings to servers around the world. That's one thing. You can detect whether someone's trying to read the model weights off your thing, off your chip, of TamperSec's enclosures, all these kind of things, right? You can detect where someone's like trying to, like all these kind of, if we're going to hit ASL4 or ASL5 goals for model security, which is probably crucial for non-proliferation, right? If we're going to try and do this like we did with nukes, then we need to have more startups, and they're well positioned to in a for-profit way to do good there in terms of the AI security space. I don't know, probably more, but that's just an example.
Maybe new question and then yeah.
I wanted to follow up on what you were saying about if you're funding academics, and if you had funding that you wanted to get to academics and be able to flood those processes with good applicants from academics, like how do you do that? It feels like right now the model that you're talking about is we're going to infiltrate a bunch of academia and we're going to kind of gather support from within. And I think it's really good because you can kind of build support there. There's also other things like reaching out directly or like running conferences and trying to get like how else, if there is money there, like how else do you get people to, or like publishing a research agenda, how else do you get people to who are already like established academics and have a home? And so it's not like you need to pivot massively, it's not like you need to move, but get like tweak those towards being things that are really impactful.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I think Lauren may have opinions as a horizon scanner at PIBBSS, trying to do that in physics. But there's something like, no matter how secure my funding in my lab is, if I think AI is brainwashing my child, then that's thing that I'm worried about, and I'm willing to maybe pivot. And so like, I think we're more and more seeing people just like privately becoming concerned about AI and then thinking, could I do something about it within my lab or something? And I expect that to be only more and more the case as AI kind of, and we need to be ready to receive them. We need to be ready to tell them, hey, these are the kind of things that you can do with your background in law, biology, physics, psychology, sociology, whatever it is. So there's a bit of that. I think there's something like, just like have a good pipeline for senior talent. PIBBSS is trying to get really good at that. I think that's like, we haven't had a need for that before because it was like people were trickling in, but like I think more and more we'll see that actually happening more and more. So our affiliate program is trying to do that. What else? Like workshops at conferences, just like if you have one person in a conference, help them do the workshop through like a little bit of funding, a little bit of logistics, a little bit of like sanity checking the topics and like helping with reviews. And suddenly this is now gathering a lot more attention than like that person by themselves could have gotten. So there's things where you can like leverage a few kind of trailheads or something into like making it a bigger gateway for people to communicate. There is also with the different like branches of science, AI safety has not always had good relationships or something. So like with artificial life, the first meeting of the minds was like quite combative, and then it took like some mending to get them talking again and stuff. But like, okay, you know, let's work towards that. I don't know, maybe Jan LeCun can be an ally or something. But like, you know, there's something to be said for these higher level efforts to pull them in. Yeah, I don't know if I answered your question. Or, yeah, any thoughts on like bringing in senior people from maths?
Oh, yeah. Well, we recently had Florian Tramer as a mentor, ETH Zurich lead, Spy Lab, big deal in cybersecurity. I think he had a good time, but he's just so busy. You know what I mean? Roger Gross was going to be a mentor in the next cohort, another big academic, but he's just too busy. He's pulled out. Like, there's a lot of senior people who are, I don't really know how to add value to them per se. So it's more just like, it's less that like maths could be a proposition to add value. It's more like they kind of have to be persuaded to pivot to work on AI safety. That's something about it. So, I mean, obviously, people who run labs, they have to, like, if they're tenured, they can, you know, do what they want with, you know, except maybe grant funding. Well, grant funding's got to be there, so that's a big thing, shifting the grant funding landscape. OpenPhil had that, I believe it was a NIST collaboration that was funding a lot of academic research. So more of that would be awesome. Maybe US Casey will get a lot of money from the Trump administration to fund more things. Certainly the AI action plan seemed to suggest that was going to happen in Department of Energy and Department of Defense and so on. We'll have more money to fund things via NIST and NSF and so on. So that would be awesome. So getting funding out there is a big way to do it. Schmidt Sciences put out RFPs targeting academics for AI safety. OpenPhil obviously has put out RFPs in the past that academics could apply to. So I think that the key ingredients are like funding, prestige, you know what I mean? And sort of like just believing it's interesting, you know what I mean? And I think we can make a better case for making it look interesting. Like I've seen a lot more kind of open problems in X papers over the last few years, which is awesome, right? That gives academics read those papers, and especially if they've got like a stellar author list, and they're like, wow, this is kind of interesting. There's a lot of open problems I can sink my teeth into. Let me, you know, it's not so much that they were persuaded by activists, as far as I'm aware. Maybe some are, but most of them just, they want to see interesting research frontiers, and they want to be able to get grant funding. Yeah, those are the main things.
I remember, Daniel, you were saying how like, some academics you were running into were like allergic to being connected with AI safety or something. So you would present like a very abstract case like, oh, imagine there's an agent that has like a lot more power and resources, and there's a smaller agent that needs to control the bigger agent. And then you nerd snipe them, and then you're like, ha, it's AI safety actually. And so like, I don't know, but this is a memorable anecdote to remember, but like, it's something like, these problems are interesting. You just have to translate them, because for an economist that is interesting, for a lawyer it's a different thing, for a biologist it's a different thing. And there's also one thing we've learned is you can haggle with universities on their fees. When you're buying out people's time, university says 50%. You say, best I can do is 10. They're like, fine. And that's it. There was no counter haggle. We were like, sorry, the funding we get is only 10% overhead. And they're like, okay. And now, this is a huge amount. This is like expensive professors. So just haggle with universities, people at home. Whoever's listening, this may be useful. Haggle with universities. They can go lower. They have all the money in the world. They'll just give you default numbers.
I can give you 8%.
Nice. Yes, please.
Maybe two observations that I seem to have come to over the last kind of few months or year. So one is competition. There's different levels of competition at different levels of where a safety researcher may enter the field. So at first, there's competition to get into any of those programs. So the fellowships, there's a Luther EI research program, there's a SPAR, Mars, all the acronyms that you want from that. So there's competition there, like several thousand applicants, I guess, in the last round of MATS, or 4, 5, 7% acceptance rate. So there's a whole lot of 93% that don't get in, and then try the others, and there's also probably limited acceptance. So there's competition. So it's usually the best ones actually that get selected, and then all the others have to find something else. The next step that those folks may try is to get to funding. Now, like we've opened with, there is no funding constraints, but there is a constraint in getting the funding. So making a good enough case to the funding agencies to get funded. And those folks, those 95% or so, and others, but many of those, I think, try to get the funding, don't get the funding, still have a research agenda, still would like to make progress, so they may come back to those programs as mentors. So they may apply to mentors because it's essentially, free team members that is great to have. So they may get the folks that sign up to those programs advance the research agenda, which makes sense. It all goes towards being competitive about the money and then trying to get credentialed or highly educated enough to actually then get employment or funding. So those two things are interesting. Another take that I had was there is the goal of 100xing the safety field is great. I think that's definitely a good path to go on. The question that I have is 100xing the fields, and given all the money that you have, how much return are you actually getting? I found it hard to estimate how much safer do we make AI at this point? How much do we reduce X risk? There's very little, I think, research on that kind of meta level. And it makes it also harder to get signals other than research tests. So people, the Ethan Perez's and the Neil Nandas, and all the leaders inside those frontier model companies, they have an idea of what they want to do to make things safer. But I'm almost believing that even they go more off of their intuition, kind of their experience, kind of the last few years. But there's no quantitative measures yet. So I'm a little interested in what maybe your opinions are in the efficiency of the huge amounts of money that are available. A lot of work that's being done in academia and labs and research organizations. Does it actually move the needle? It's kind of an interesting topic. Sorry, it was a long monologue.
Forecasting the end of the world is kind of hard.
Yes.
Forecasting whether regular research will pay off is pretty hard.
Right.
The best we have for the former, for forecasting big world events, or something like our super forecasters, and even those are mainly calibrated on their ability to forecast short horizon things that aren't extraordinarily impactful and black swans. You know what I mean? So it's hard to see how we could get meaningfully better at this. Certainly, I think the work that Forethought Foundation is doing is probably, and maybe EPOC in a sense, is field leading here. So, and of course, Forecasting Research Institute have the best aggregate forecasters going on, Philip Tetlock and all that. So I have tried to catalyze projects to work out what is the best research agenda and why. The best we've landed on with MATS is we have a panel of 25 experts that we've picked out. We picked out 100 different researchers. We're all right, these 50 seem pretty good or something. Let's ask them to be on our panel. 25 said yes. They look at our mentors and their projects and they tell us what they think of them. qualitatively and quantitatively. So that's the best mechanism we have, sort of wisdom of the crowds, like selected crowds, you know what I mean? If you look at like forecasting platforms like Metaculus and prediction markets like Manifold, sometimes people put up stuff about like, well, what's the probability of AI wiping out humanity, right? There's like a Ragnarok series of predictions there. Interestingly, it's like at 2% now. It aligns with the public survey from Forecasting Research Institute. So that's more hopeful than a lot of, loud voices make it seem, but there's a lot of variance in that. In terms of like what are the most important things to work on, the best that I've managed to work out is you identify experts by means of a peer network of other experts, and then you like trust their judgment. I don't yet have a better forecasting mechanism, though I have considered putting together forecasting bounties or something. I haven't followed through with that.
Yeah, I think it's also just generally hard. Like, okay, we say, there was a 5% chance, we now reduced it to 2% chance, and then the world doesn't go extinct. Should we pat ourselves on the back? I don't know, man. Like, yeah, and so same with like pandemic preparedness, and then no pandemic happens. Did the efforts work, or were we in the random worlds where it wouldn't have happened either way? You should still be ready for pandemics. And so like this is the same kind of thing where like, and again, because we don't even know what the actual risky AIs will look like. Like they may end up not being LLMs. They may end up being like on a completely different thing where like our interpretability efforts so far are all scrapped. Or maybe they're exactly like we now see them and all the interpretability pays off. So should we pay for interpretability? Yeah, some, but not all of it. And so like what PIBBSS does is just broad range of like different research directions, seed new research directions. Some are interpretability, some are like law, some are, try to figure out some things from neuroscience to see if it can apply to this. And something will stick. You're just trying to diversify your bets so that in most of the worlds, the things that you have done have made a base to actually allow you to make good decisions in the future. It's hard. There's no and this is guaranteed going to. But yeah, that's kind of how we make the bets.
Analogy here. I see MATS as sort of like the S&P 500 of AI safety, because like we basically kind of come up with like ranked lists of mentors and their projects, and roughly speaking, like we pick a. It's like an index fund, right? Like we like pick like everyone over a certain bar, they're in. Everyone under a certain bar, they're out, unfortunately. And then like in between, we like make picks based on like diversity of research agendas. Have they like mentored with us before and gotten great reviews? Like, I don't know, are they bringing something new to the table? Are they like very experienced researchers in general? Like, we make some kind of picks within that range. And research diversity is a big part of that, right? We want to kind of like have one person doing in a lot of different areas, right, for diversity's sake. But I think that this kind of approach, especially given we like adjust this every 6 months, and hopefully are pretty good at picking advisors, is good. It's the best thing we thought of.
Yeah, PIBBSS does the other way. We're reverse MATS. We find excellent fellows, and then we try to match them with mentors based on like what that particular fellow needs. So like in MATS you apply for a certain mentor because they've pre-selected mentors. Here mentors apply for fellows almost. Like we have a list of fellows that have passed the bar, and then we tell mentors, these are the people, who do you like? And then there's a matchmaking process. And so hopefully between the two of us we select for both like good mentors with good visions and pair them with people who are great for that, and then like good random people who are just like excellent, and then get them into the field. And so, yeah, that works out.
I would say that, like just like I have some of my impact equity in the S&P 500 of AI safety, I see it in MATS. I have some impact equity, I think, in. I funded PIBBSS at one point, and I like try and help out any way I can with.
Yeah, you absolutely do. Thanks.
Yeah, because I think that this is a very important, bet. Like that, actually, we need to like basically backchain from the nature of intelligence itself. And like work towards that, because let's be honest, like most of the empirical research directions today, probably all of them really, don't claim to be able to solve superintelligence alignment, right? They're just trying to solve near-term AGI alignment such that we can like prevent near-term risks and leverage that AI in the crazy period when everything's going off to do the research aligning the superintelligences at that time, right? It's like people were making a deferred bet that like they'll be able to do more research faster if A, they have a lot of nearly superintelligent AI assistants that they can control adequately. Hopefully that works out. And B, if things would kind of go, like they can see more about the shape of the thing they're building, right? Right now it's kind of very vague, like what actual superintelligence will look like.
Yeah.
And I think that's one maybe singular bet. Like I like the diversification of risks. So banking too much on scalable oversight, whatever name you choose for that concept, is one possible path, but it possibly is not the only one. And if we put all our money on that, meaning if we're too myopic as a field, then I think there is more exposure to risk, especially in the short timeline scenarios where a lot can change quickly. Maybe there is also another problem. If one learns from climate change, which is one of the other activist type of recent younger fields that has grown a lot, they managed to get fully quantized. So it's CO2 equivalent tonnage, anything that makes an emission can get back to this huge world model of, what is climate change going to do? And then there's a quantification there. And you can attach money to that because there's a provable, so to speak, to some extent, impact that some investment of your money will do if the return goes back the same way. And in our pre-paradigmatic AI safety field, I feel like this is one of the things that irks me the most, that we don't have that, so we cannot actually have a fairly clear signal, okay, this is the impact that our money will have. And still we make fairly narrow funding decisions about all the folks who have ideas, only a few get it, and that's based on the parent panel to 25 or what OpenPhil is considering important, like McIntyre or other things, even though it is a bet. And I don't claim to have a solution. I think maybe doing a little more meta research and trying to quantify existential risk, that's my personal research agenda, may make sense, but on the other hand, it's very complex. It's not easy.
Yeah, reducing micromorts of a planet is like hard. Yeah. And I would argue that like CO2 is not a great measure and gets you all of the carbon offsets, accounting, swindling stuff that like is exactly the kind of thing that if it happens with AI safety, things go really poorly. We have a minute left. No, 5 minutes left. Nice. Yeah. So maybe last question. Yeah.
I wonder about how to build community in places that are not the Bay Area or London. Eventually, I want to go back to France. That would be nice, but there's no AI safety there. There is, but not too much. So what would you advise to do to make France as good as the UK in terms of AI safety?
Well, I mean, like the UK is UKAC. They have a lot of government funding, so convince the French government to fund AI safety would be one. Or EU AI office has this big tender out, right? Many millions, probably more coming. You could get CICIA, Charbel Raphael. I'm sorry, I'm going to mispronounce his name, but Charbel's organization, CICIA, and other field building organizations in France could apply for that tender and scale up accordingly. Safer AI, Simeon Campos, I believe, he's from France. Like, it's not like France is nothing, right? Actually, I think that France is probably the best place in the EU to work on AI safety, unless you're at the EU AI office itself. I would just say, what are they lacking? Probably, I guess, it's not like they can't, CCA is funded by OpenPhil, right? So there's obviously potential for expansion there and building that relationship. Safer AI too, I believe. Though I think that because they're an advocacy org, they have to search it from other diverse funding sources. But yeah, getting great people to put together tenders for the EU AI office funding, applying for more OpenPhil stuff, especially there's been a bunch of French scholars who've gone through MATS. I know Safer AI has had a rough time hiring because they need people who are good at AI governance and want to work with them. Go work there, help them build that pipeline. Most of these organizations that are about the size of Safer AI and CCA, the main thing they're bottlenecked on actually isn't researchers per se, it's amplifiers. It's people who know how to grow an organization. They understand enough of the research and they understand enough of how to help with grant applications, how to manage people, how to do HR and operations and fundraising, everything. So that's what it needs basically.
Yeah, I think there's ENICE, the European Network for AI Safety, that is motivated by the fact that Europeans don't all live in one place. Here, it's everyone's in the Bay. In UK, everything's in London, and like in Europe, it's like I live in a nice village. I'm not gonna move just because everyone is living in Paris, and so like. There's this kind of like online network of scientists that is trying to happen, but that is hard. But like there are things that help. I don't know, in London probably Lisa helps a lot, like having an office, maybe help start an office or get people who can start an office excited about AI safety and then get them in.
I believe CCA has an office there.
They do?
Like
yeah, maybe.
Small office.
I know Berlin has one. And so like, yeah, like all of these things kind of build on one another. When you have like regular monthly meetings, then it's easier to bring people in, and then when you have cool people coming in, then it's easier to get others in, and so it's, I don't know, there's no like just do this one thing. It's, yeah, unfortunately ineffable kind of fuzzy, but yeah, happy to come to Paris, help out for a month.
I could chat about how I co-founded Lisa some other time. Yeah, I'd love to reach out. You can reach me at ryan@matsprogram.org.
Okay,
Yeah.
Sweet. Any 1 minute question?
Sorry, you go. I already go.
I don't know if mine is 1 minute.
Is yours 1 minute?
Maybe.
Okay, you higher bid
Have
then.
a program to teach people to pitch to investors, right? Or two funders, right? If that's the bottleneck, is actually trying to part of their funding. Is that the skill we now need to train people in?
I think there's like bad ways to do this. I think there's bad ways to do this that are like how to guess the password of the funder. I think that's bad. The good thing is like help people acquire skills such that funders see them as easy to invest in. So like if you are, I don't know, 50 years in like experience in academia, but you've never run a project, then they'll maybe suspect you can't run an org. Cool, let's upskill you in running an org so that when you apply, this looks like an obviously good bet.
Luckily, we have some incubators now. We have Selden Labs, based in SF. They're the most recent one. Future of Life Foundation, based in Berkeley. We have, of course, Catalyze Impact, which I've been working with for a while, largely based in London. We have, Y Combinator had their explainable AI kind of thing, right? Entrepreneur First had their defensive acceleration thing, and probably more besides. So there are startup accelerators. Catalyze Impact, I think, is the only one that's really focused at nonprofits. Oh, and Constellation is ostensibly doing some incubator thing. But yeah, like there's a lot of potential opportunities, a lot of MATS alums, like 10% of MATS alums have co-founded an active AI safety project. 10%. It happens,
Nice.
Yeah, it definitely happens. And I think these incubators, that's before most of these incubators existed, right? Now we're gonna get a lot more. And in terms of applying for grant funding, like the main things I found, yeah, totally, getting qualified, like having papers out that look good, that's big, right? Getting references from people that are respected by funders. I mean, examples would be MATS or PIBBSS mentors, right? And third, knowing how to write a grant proposal or putting together a pitch deck. Like, if you wanted to put together a pitch deck, ask somebody who's put it together before, aka go to one of these incubators. If you want to put together a grant proposal, ask someone who's done it before. MATS has a research plan as a mid-program kind of milestone. Everyone does a research plan. It's basically designed to be the best grant proposal idea we can come up with, right? And that's kind of part of the MATS training program. I'm sure there could be other people could like get online and kind of hack together research plans. So there was a thing that happened. Meridian Cambridge had a program recently in Cambridge, right, where they like basically is like come over for a week or two and we'll just teach you how to write a grant proposal, like a really good one. We'll brainstorm it. It's sort of like an incubator for grant proposals. And so we could do more of those in Australia, anywhere.
Yeah, nice. Anyhow, yeah, thank you all for coming. Thank you for your great questions. Thanks, Ryan, for organizing this. And yeah, talk to you more later.